and welcome to another episode of the Online Warriors podcast. My name is Nerdbomber, and I am joined by my two wonderful co-hosts, Techtic and Illeagle, who will now take it away.
Okay, today on the podcast, we have Lukas Eggen joining us for an interview. Lukas is a digital content producer at the Las Vegas Review-Journal, where he writes gaming editorials and co-hosts the LAN Parties Podcast. Looking forward to talking to you about that, Lukas. Interviewing some of the biggest names in gaming. So first of all, Lukas, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, how you got your start in journalism, just kind of general background?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for inviting me on the show. I'm excited and I'm honored to be on, so I appreciate that. So, journalism for me started, a long time ago. I think I was always destined to be a journalist. I was the kid that was writing fake newspapers and doing fake newscasts for my family, which I know they loved. All the time. They had to have, right?
Right. How could they not?
Right? I think my official start in journalism, though, started in middle school. I was living in Wisconsin at the time, and I started writing music and movie reviews for the Green Bay Press-Gazette because they would reimburse you for the CD or the movie ticket. So, to be perfectly honest with you, I got into journalism to get free music and free movies.
Hey, that sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, that's as good a reason as any.
Right? As a middle schooler without a job, that was the perfect situation. And so I started to really kind of fall in love with it. I thought it was really fun. So I think I was always wanting to get into the entertainment or sports areas because I love those, but I knew I could never be an actor or an athlete or anything like that. So this was a way to keep close to it. Did the student newspaper in high school, went to college in Reno, did the newspaper out there, and then my first job in 2012 now, oh my goodness, it's been a while, I was in this small town called Ely, Nevada, a really tiny town, just a couple thousand people, a weekly newspaper. I was basically all by myself in the newsroom, and then went to Oregon, and then out to Las Vegas.
Wow, so you've moved around quite a bit.
Yeah, I've been around to a few places.
But that's really cool. And first of all, I feel like we should give props to the Gazette that gave you your start. What a cool program.
Yeah, it was a great program. They specifically wanted teenagers to do it, and I think as a way to get them interested. And I'm sure this was not their intention, but boy, I took advantage of that.
Right. I mean, like you said, what better way to really let's just call it what it is: bribe a child. And say, we will pay for a CD for you if you will write something for us. But it's very cool. So that's awesome. And now you're out in Vegas as we went through. Yeah, very exciting stuff.
Yeah, and in the last year or so, you've been a pretty busy guy. You kickstarted the LAN Parties podcast and kind of established a greater gaming presence over at the Las Vegas Review-Journal. What kind of inspired you to make that jump and pivot into the games journalism sphere once you got to the Las Vegas Review-Journal?
I had wanted to get into games journalism for a little bit. It's something that didn't really sink in until the last couple of years, but, being a fan of the Game Informers and IGNs and Kotakus of the world, that was always in the back of my mind. But to be honest, it was when Launcher for the Washington Post got going that it really kind of started to set in and been oh, hey, more traditional news outlets are starting to pay attention to this. Maybe there's a way for me to kind of sneak into this. And it wasn't planned. My boss was talking to me about something else, and for better or for worse, I kind of get into rant mode about stuff I'm passionate about. And so I got going, and one thing led to another, and then I brought up video games, then I brought up how I thought we should do a podcast, and before I knew it, I was trying to sell him on this gaming podcast, which was not the subject of our meeting originally, so... Oh well, but then I didn't hear anything for a couple months, and it wasn't until my co-host Ryan Smith got hired that my boss just one day was walking by with Ryan, and he stopped at my desk and he said, I think you two would be good together. Why don't you start working on launching that podcast? And so it kind of came out of the blue after that, and then it was figuring out all the details, figuring out our name, and figuring out when we were going to launch. And the stories kind of came about how it was just a way to make it more enticing to get guests on our show, to say, hey, not only will you be on our podcast, I'll write a story for you on our website. And I kind of just kept doing it just as a way to increase our presence. I had asked them early on if I could write stories, and they said yes, and I just never asked them again. I was like, I'm just going to go with it. So
right.
kind of backdoored my way into it, to be honest.
So with that, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced trying to pave the way for gaming coverage at a more traditional news outlet?
I think one of the biggest things is getting people to take you seriously, because gaming journalism had traditionally been at those gaming centered focused places. I think sometimes they view newspapers as, oh, well, you must not really be gamers. Like, you're just trying to reach a different crowd,
right,
but you won't really know what you're talking about. And so that took a little bit of trouble to get over. And then it was just getting access. You know, I think one of the most frustrating parts about this industry is that they like to keep everything so close to the vest, and sometimes it's hard to get people to open up. And as a storyteller, that is probably the most frustrating thing to run into.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Well, and, you know, it's great to see, obviously, that hopefully it's a trend that will continue, that more traditional outlets will start covering games, if only because of the amount of money in it. I mean, we're seeing things like esports coming up, and these very lucrative and very narratively involved games. I mean, games are turning into this industry that, and we've talked about this with other guests on our general show before. You know, it's just turning into this huge thing. It's like the movie industry, and God knows the movie industry gets covered by traditional media outlets all the time. So
yeah, I'd agree with that. I think what is great is you're seeing journalists who are gamers rather than gamers trying to be journalists. And I think
right,
that's an important distinction that needs to be made to kind of help tell those stories that need to be told throughout the industry.
Right. So let's get into, you know, some fun, like, surreal moments, I guess. Obviously, you've gotten to interview a lot of people, speak with a lot of industry greats since the inception of LAN Parties, which, by the way, I love the name. We'll get to the name a little bit later. Most surreal moment in your career thus far?
Okay, well, oh my goodness. I would say that Nolan North was right up there, because I had been trying to book him for almost 6 months. And up until that point, we hadn't had much success with getting bigger guests. And so, like, this was like my mission. I was like, we're going to get him one way or the other. And when it wasn't happening, I kind of was like, well, maybe we won't get him. And it wasn't his agent, it was him that emailed me and said, I'm free this day, which was like a couple days before. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And I like texted Ryan, I was like, we got to change our recording plan this week.
Move mountains, essentially, yeah.
And that was like a moment of, I mean, I love the Uncharted games. Love watching retro replay and all that. So like that was a moment of like professional me and like fan me, like arguing with each other, and how
right
how much of that excitement to show, and how much nerding out I am allowed to do, and trying to remember I'm supposed to be a professional. But like that moment was also like a sea change moment for us, because that really felt like opened the door for us getting some other guests.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, I mean, my jealousy, Uncharted is like top 5 franchises for me, so my jealousy is pretty boundless. I'm not a professional journalist, obviously. I would have gushed. It would have been embarrassing for everybody. Yeah, it would have been embarrassing for everybody involved. You know, we interviewed Greg Edmondson, the guy who wrote the scores for Uncharted. That was bad enough. I had a hard enough time holding it together then. I can't even imagine Nolan North. So that's amazing, obviously.
So
super cool.
To kind of follow that up, if you could land any interview on your show, who would be your dream interviewee?
Okay, I'm going to name 2 because one is super unrealistic, I'm sure. Keanu Reeves would be amazing.
Oh, that would be awesome.
God.
I mean, man, he's been like my favorite actor since I was a kid. So everybody who now thinks Keanu Reeves is cool, you're way late to the party. You guys just didn't know. So he would be like my top guest. However, more gaming focused, Troy Baker, let's do it. Let's get you on the show. Come on.
Right. Huge Last of Us fan as well, by the way. So, I mean, I'm just kind of a huge Naughty Dog fan. Troy Baker in that game obviously was unbelievable. I think Keanu would do it, man. Like, Keanu has his reputation, right? Where he's a nice guy. He's a normal guy. He's sitting on a park bench by himself a lot of the time. He just seems like he needs something to do. Just
I think you would just have to catch him like walking through New York or something. I don't think you could do it as a reaching out type thing.
Right?
Bump into him on the street.
Like, hey, while I have you.
Okay, so here's my warning to Keanu. I'm not stalking you, I promise. If I run into you, purely chance.
Right. But if I do, I will ask you to be on this podcast. Yeah. Yeah, Keanu would be great. I mean, yeah, but like you said, I think people's vision of Keanu now is certainly different. That I think a lot of people need to go watch Speed, right? Like that's probably, I mean, I don't know what your favorite Keanu movie is. I think a lot of people know Keanu as the John Wick Keanu, which is a great Keanu.
Pro tip, tell him you need a goalie for hockey. Yeah. Serious.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, there was Speed, there was, I mean, of course, The Matrix. Keanu, man, he's done it. He's truly done it. He's put together quite a career.
Right? Like, how rare is it for somebody to be an action star in the 90s and now entering the 2020s?
Right.
And I'm convinced he doesn't age.
Right. Well,
that's a fact. He's immortal.
So you were also recently named as part of the inaugural 2020 Future Class during the Game Awards. What was your first reaction when you found out that you were chosen for that? Because I feel like that's got to be such an incredible moment as a journalist, especially in the game sphere.
Oh my goodness, like total shock. Just total shock. So my work email gets a ton of emails, so I almost just passed over that email, to be perfectly honest with you, because I was not thinking about that at all. And just amazing. I mean, I felt sheepish to be on that list of so many incredible people. Lots of excitement. It's incredibly humbling to think that this really had just gotten going that year, and that people thankfully are seeing some value in it. Like, that is the best part about that to me, is that people find what we're doing is worthwhile, and they're not just like, right. It's there.
It has to be so validating knowing that this thing you've created is garnering interest and garnering this, future class consideration. Super cool. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And to be honest, there was a lot of relief too, because just going back to the more traditional news outlets, you always get some of those people that maybe aren't understanding this industry and don't fully see the worth in doing that. So to have that really was, right, like you said, extremely validating and a great way to just take a breath and go, all right, what we're doing is working, and thank goodness. So I can, then show my bosses, hey, that bet that you guys took on me is somewhat worth it, hopefully.
Yeah, ammunition to fight the naysayers should you need to, right?
Exactly.
It's certainly cool. So let's talk about LAN parties. Let's talk about the name. Now, Techtic and I, just before, were talking about the real-life LAN parties that we have had. This name, is this inspired by personal experience with LAN parties? And if so, favorite LAN party memories? Were you a big LAN party guy?
Yeah, it was inspired by that. Funny thing is, that was not our first choice. That was, we had a list of a bunch of names, and I don't know, fate brought LAN parties up that list, thankfully.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It was a really weird process trying to figure out a name. I had our list, and I was just staring at it, and I would randomly cross some off, and I would randomly add some in. So I don't know how you guys got your name, but ours was not very graceful. It was
I don't remember how we got ours at all.
I feel like we were just sitting around planning our first episode, and we're like, what sounds cool? Online Warriors.
I thought it was based on what can give us a cool logo, but I can't remember.
Yeah, it's not that long ago. It feels like it's so long ago. It's not that long ago, but I don't remember that at all. I'm sure I was involved, but I don't remember it. But LAN parties, so are we talking, because my LAN party experience has been Halo. Halo is the LAN party game.
Oh, yes.
So is that your experience as well, I guess?
It is, because, going back to the original Xbox, that was my first home console that I ever got. So Halo 2...
Yeah.
Entirely too many hours spent playing that with friends, but so worth it.
Absolutely no such thing as too many, in my opinion. I was a Halo 2 guy for sure. That was all my best LAN party memories were Halo 2 based. And Techtic, I think you said the same.
Yeah, I was Halo as well. I had the whole backpack set up ready to go all the time.
Oh, man, you were ready.
The one thing that kind of makes me sad is that kids now growing up, everything is online, and you don't have to worry about hauling your console to someone's house, and they're going to miss that entire experience of just staying up all night, trying to get everything configured and set up, and then just playing for hours.
See, I do want to challenge that a little bit, because with LAN parties, sleepovers were kind of related to them very, very closely. And with today's gaming, all of you can only do really online multiplayer. There's not a lot of split screen multiplayer. So
I was going to say, split screen's very tied to this.
You're kind of forced now to have LAN parties, in my opinion, if you think about it.
I think I'm with Nerdbomber here. We can of course get Lucas's opinion, but I think that the death of split screen also is kind of a harbinger for the death of LAN parties, unfortunately, because these communal experiences.
That's true. But each person would need their own system.
Exactly. Yeah. To me, it's communal experience that can't be traded in. Doesn't translate to directly online. Lucas, I don't know if you've talked about this. I don't know if you've gone this deep a dive into your title on the show, but this is stuff that we think about, I guess.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you guys. Like the kids these days, they won't know what it's like back in the old days.
Kids these days.
It's funny because like even a game like a Super Smash, like I love Super Smash, but I still will only usually play it with friends, like at somebody's house. Like I just feel like you lose something.
Oh yeah,
I couldn't agree more with that game. Could not agree more.
Well, it's unfortunately it might be our generations. You know how like you were growing up and like your parents were like, "Oh, we had this game called Pong," and you were like, "Shut up, Dad. That's whatever. We're gonna be Dad." Or mom, it's a terrifying thought. And the kids are going to be like, what's split screen? We're going to be like, oh, let me tell you, sleepover.
Yeah, it's a scary thought to think we're becoming our parents and we're like, what is this new technology? What are you guys talking about? You're missing the good stuff.
Right. All right, we're getting too depressing. Nerdbomber, next question.
So, I mean, outside of Halo and like the LAN party experience, what kind of games really fostered and inspired your love of gaming? Because I feel like we all have that one game or two that we played as a kid that was like, this is it. This is what locked me in as a gamer for life kind of deal.
Yeah, so my first game system of any kind was a Game Boy Color. And Pokemon Special Pikachu Edition. I was in like the middle of Pokemon fever. Like I was watching the show, I was collecting the cards, and I started playing the games. I was their dream customer there. But that game was so just amazing to me. I mean, you went on this grand adventure, you were catching all these Pokemon, but then you could trade and battle with friends, and you had to use those link cables that like never worked, but you could try. And so like it gave you something to talk about with friends. So like I didn't obviously realize it at the time because I was so young, but that was like immediately a look into like how social and how powerful games can be to bringing in a group of people and having those kind of water cooler moments. So that really was it for me.
It was almost a status symbol back in the day. I remember on a field trip, we were all Pokemon battling, and this one kid lied and told everyone that he beat me in a Pokemon battle to prove that he is the best. When it wasn't even true, guys. It wasn't even true. I beat him.
It was this, this societal construct. I mean, going even beyond the games, going to the cards, the show, everything you mentioned. But the games were, I think, the crown jewel, especially in terms of probably the money that they made. Although I'm sure the trading cards, that was quite a financial boondoggle as well. But it was this crazy zeitgeist that admittedly I was not a part of. But my brothers were. And like, so I saw it firsthand, and it was this insane, like, I think there's so many people that we could ask this question to today about, formative games, and so many people would say Pokemon, and it's generational too. There's kids now that are still playing these Pokemon games.
We're still playing these Pokemon games.
Well, right, but I'm saying at an introductory level, that's still what I think a lot of kids are. And granted, they don't have the show anymore, but like.
Oh, but they
can still get the cards. Is the show back? I don't know.
It's been going. He finally beat the Elite Four. Good things are happening with Ash. Good things.
Fair enough. Clearly, I'm not a Pokemon guy, but made that clear, I guess.
So, what are you most excited for in terms of the future of gaming, both as a medium and as sort of a culture?
Short term, I'm looking forward to seeing our new systems kind of start to fully mature with the games they're offering. Mm-hmm. I don't own either system. I would like to at some point, but I also don't feel like a super need to go out and get one right now. Just because we don't have those next gen titles that are like, yep, that's the system seller. Like honestly, Halo Infinite probably would have been it for me for Xbox, but since that got delayed, right, I'm not in a rush for that. I love PlayStation franchises, but until I see the God of Wars and Horizons start to come out, then I'm also not in a huge rush for that. Nintendo-wise, I mean, kind of piggybacking Pokemon, I am so psyched for Pokemon Legends, like an open-world Pokemon game. Are you kidding me?
We've been
Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. Broader strokes, I've always been intrigued by virtual reality, but I feel like there's just... the comfort thing is going to be the biggest hurdle to climb. I've fooled around with the Oculus Quest 2, which I do think is a pretty cool thing. I think price-wise, we're finally seeing these headsets come down to be more accessible to people. But, I can't play more than maybe an hour tops on VR, and that's pushing it, depending on the game.
You need full immersion in order to not feel sick, and it's just execution of that is... we're just not there yet.
Exactly. And, my head gets too warm. I don't think they figured out the sweet spot for the weight yet. So there's a lot for them to figure out. But, I'm excited about the potential of that. And, not necessarily gaming related, but I love, sword art, right? So, the idea that maybe without getting trapped in a VR world, but maybe eventually getting to that point of, being totally immersed in that VR world sounds super amazing to me.
Oh, yeah.
So is what I'm hoping we start to get figured out here over the next couple years. And culturally, I just hope people continue to realize gaming as a maturing storytelling platform that can promote important discussions as well as just entertain. I always look back to a game like The Last of Us as an example of hey, a game can tell a story that's every bit as emotional, as thrilling, and as exciting as any movie or book now. And I just want more people to fully embrace that, to fully look at this as works of art instead of childish diversions.
Right. And there's a spectrum there, right? Last of Us, I couldn't agree more. I've watched entire YouTube videos about they wrote a script for The Last of Us that includes the gaming elements, in that the character is controlled by the player, but it's a script. It's a movie script. And there's a spectrum across the industry where there are games like that. There are games like Uncharted that I think are very similar. And then there are still those childish, Candy Crush is a game, right? So there's a spectrum, but I do think it's important. I agree with you completely that people need to realize that spectrum exists and is very wide, and at one end there are these really, really artistically beautiful things being made.
Yeah, definitely agree. And even if you look at things like movies, right? You have the kids movies that are purely aimed at a certain age, and if you're not in that age group, you're gonna be okay. So games are no different. I just want people to hopefully embrace that and see the power of gaming.
Yeah, and I think we're definitely even starting to scratch that surface when you look at just how big the gaming industry has become, both, obviously monetarily, but just the amount of reach. You look at statistics where they're showing how many people now own a gaming console and have played some of these massive gaming experiences. So I think we're starting to get there, and it's really exciting as people who are passionate about games.
And it's even breaching things like the medical field with helping people strengthen their brain and things like that. So way to go, gaming.
So
way to go.
Kind of taking a step back from gaming a little bit, and this is definitely super broad in general, but what's the coolest part about living and working in Las Vegas?
Oh my goodness. We get a lot of conventions that we get to go to and cover, and that to me is so much fun. I've gotten to see things that I never really would have been able to get into. So that's cool. There's always a lot going on. Vegas seems like one of those cities that has its hand in a lot of different things. And so you always feel like there's something to discover. And so there's never a lack of things to do or things to see and things to find out about. So I love that. I love that the city lives and breathes all day, every day. And there's just a ton of excitement.
Yeah. I've always wanted to go to Vegas. Never been there. I have a feeling, and you can confirm or deny this, that I think when everyone thinks Vegas, what do they think of?
The Strip.
Gambling. And I think, granted, I think they've kind of parlayed that into it's gambling, but it's fun. You'll lose the mortgage, but you'll have a good time, But I do think it's unfortunate I think it's probably so much more than that. And in addition to that, I think a lot of people also think it's the hottest place on earth. I'm sure it's so much more than that. But it's super cool to hear. I mean, there's a lot going on. And I can imagine for someone who's a gaming journalist, like you said, there's a lot of conventions, there's a lot of things.
I've actually heard the food is one of the best things about Vegas.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, if you guys come out to Vegas, which everybody should, I'd love to treat you guys to dinner if you guys head out here someday.
Well, we have it on record, folks.
Yes, exactly. Be prepared to gain some weight because it's going to be so worth it.
Okay, well, duly noted.
Kind of like a quick 1B, because I saw on your social media, you have like the Golden Knights jerseys and everything. I'm a huge hockey fan. What was it like kind of being at the beginning of the start of such a great franchise?
Yeah, I always think that, like, I might get myself into trouble here. No offense to the Raiders, but like
I was
the
about
Knights.
To ask about the Raiders, yeah, but go on. Yeah,
the Knights, I think, have that stronger connection because it's not a relocated team. Like, this is our team from the ground up. And also, on a sadder note, but like the 1 October shooting that happened out here, the Knights really bonded with this community after that shooting, through the donations, and like they were there for this team. They had just gotten started, so that link was formed super early. And then, of course, with the success that they've seen early on, everybody loves a winner anyway. So yeah, it's cool because it's our team. We saw it get built. This isn't some other city's team that they moved out here. We can call it our own. And so like that's been really awesome to see.
Yeah, I'm more of an NFL fan. The Raiders, in terms of earning Las Vegas fandom, have kind of a lot going against them, right? I mean, I have no issue with the Raiders, but like you said, they're a team that moved out there. They are in progress too. That's like that. I think that's probably the best thing you can say about them right now. They have a lot of good building blocks, but they were party to some wild losses in the past. I'm thinking of the Jets loss mainly. That was the Jets actually, did they beat the Jets?
They beat the Jets on a ridiculous second play.
The Jets played like no defense. Yeah, go Raiders.
Yeah, the Raiders, I would go see a Raiders game if I could ever afford the tickets, which I'm sure that they're astronomically high. But, I feel like if you're a fan of a different NFL team, you're not going to just suddenly switch to being a Raiders fan. Like, maybe they'll be your second favorite team, but like most fans don't just randomly switch which team they root for. Right.
Yeah, it's got to be very cool, though, to be a part of Las Vegas, just suddenly getting multiple sports teams, kind of establishing that thing culturally in town for them. That's got to be very cool to be a part of. So again, switching gears, and in particular, asking this question for the young 8-year-old Illeagle 86 who also wrote a family newsletter. What advice or recommendations would you give to a young journalist who's trying to break into the industry? And this can be gaming specific, it can be not gaming specific, it can be, much broader than that.
I would say find as many opportunities as you can to get your writing published. And don't be afraid of critiques. My first article at my college newspaper never ran. It was like bleeding red ink. I just looked at it and like my heart just sunk. I was like, oh. But that kind of like brutally honest feedback made me a much better journalist. And, I heard somebody say, if somebody stops correcting you, it's because they've given up on you. So like that kind of honest feedback is important. And take it to heart, but don't take it personally. Like, learn from it. And, thinking back to, like, when I was writing for the Green Bay Press-Gazette, a lot of local newspapers across the country have opportunities if you'll just ask. Pitch them on a story and just start practicing. And always, try and keep in contact with mentors and whatnot. And I think you'd be surprised. It's easier than it seems to start building your portfolio, and that is the most important thing. I'm not saying, obviously go to school and learn the basics and stuff, but your portfolio is going to be your lifeline in this industry.
Duly noted. I'll pass that along to 8-year-old Illeagle 86, see what comes back. But I appreciate that.
So this is the final question, and it's something we've been asking all of our guests on the show. If you were a real-life superhero, what power would you have?
Ooh, boy. I go down a rabbit hole with this one because I always start doing this pros and cons, and then a half an hour later I'm like, why did I spend this much time? I would love
It's okay. This is the hardest. I feel like every interview we have, this is the hardest hitting question, and everyone we interview is like, "Oh gosh, there are so many possibilities." Because there are, right?
I feel like super strength would be really practical because like I'm not like a weightlifter or anything like that. So sometimes I'm like, it would be really nice if I could like lift something and not be like, am I gonna throw out my back? Like,
right.
So from like a mundane day-to-day task, like super strength would be really useful for me.
Right. You get all the groceries into your house in one trip.
Right?
I mean,
right?
Come on.
I mean, that's everyone's goal.
That's a priceless power, I feel like. Yeah. Very cool. Well, super strength. We'll mark you down for super strength. We should really like publish like everyone we've had on the show, what's their power, and create an Avengers. Because I think that is really the goal of this question, at least it was the initial goal of this question. So
there you go. I feel like I might be the lame Avenger though. I'm just the one carrying the groceries in for the rest of the group.
Hey, everyone needs to eat, right?
I thought from a journalistic standpoint, you were going to say to read people's minds.
That's a slippery slope.
Yeah,
sometimes you don't want to know.
Thought that would be cool, but I think there's a joy in discovering and like finding out when somebody opens up to you and finding out like what makes them tick. Like I like that part of the job of not knowing and then them trusting you enough to share that with you.
Right. You could even, so not necessarily about the destination, but about the journey in a sense.
Right.
That's man. I also feel like this question always leaves us with a nugget of wisdom, and this was no exception. So, thank you, Lucas. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for answering all of our questions. We really appreciate having you here. Everyone should go check out the LAN Parties podcast, and also check out Lucas's work in the Las Vegas Review Journal. So, thanks again, Lucas.
Thank you for having me anytime.
We are going to take a quick break now, and we will be right back to continue the show. Okay, we are back. We want to thank Lukas Eggen again for joining us, chatting with us for a while. We had a great time talking to him. You can check out his podcast as well. So thanks again to him. Now we're going to jump into some of our regular news topics for the week. Now, I'm going to start with the heavy one. We got 3 laid out in front of us here, 2 movie topics, 1 convention topic. I consider it heavy, and I think most of us do. It's objectively, I guess, not heavy news. Probably good news for some people. San Diego Comic-Con 2021 is set to return as an in-person event. Now, you may think, whoa, not time for that yet. It's going to be returning on Thanksgiving weekend 2021. They revealed that they're going to be doing an in-person show from November 26th through 28th, 2021, hoping that by the fall, conditions, and I'm quoting here, conditions will permit larger public gatherings. It will be known as Comic-Con Special Edition, which will be the first in-person convention since Comic-Con 2019, since, of course, the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we should talk about this. I'm actually going to take a non-pandemic bent on this, because I know there's a lot you could say about it happening on the heels of a pandemic as that making it a bad idea. But you know what else makes it a bad idea?
The holiday?
Thanksgiving weekend. It's a terrible time to do this.
Right?
It's like, I mean, yeah, again, setting aside the fact that, we just saw a huge surge around this time, or starting around this time for the virus, considering the fact that people should be spending this weekend with their families, or shopping on Black Friday and being a good American consumer. I've always been the kind of person who I take huge issue even with the whole and they didn't do it this year, but companies, basically bleeding into Thursday with their Black Friday sales. This is, it's the 26th Thanksgiving, or is it 26th, 27th, 28th? Is that Friday through Sunday? I would assume it's Friday through Sunday, but still.
I think it's Friday through Sunday, but you'd have to travel there.
Exactly.
And the thing here for me is if you are a regular person, you're not contractually obligated to attend, if you want to go, that's great. But the people who I feel really bad for are your vendors, all of the people who make this happen, all of the logistical people behind the scenes, because San Diego Comic-Con is not a small undertaking. There is so much work that goes into planning and making sure that event goes off without a hitch. And then additionally, all of the people like all of your celebrities and the big names who go on panels, like, will they want to be there? Will there even be enough people? Because I got to be honest, like, those people probably look forward to, if they have families, you know, they work a lot and, you know, you want to spend the holiday with your family. It might be one of the few non-working weekends they have of the year, you know, they probably don't want to go to a Comic-Con as much as they love the fandom. I mean, a lot of the people who are on panels at these things and appear, like, they love the fans, but do they love them enough to want to skip a holiday with their family? I don't know.
Right. I mean, I will say, you know, I'm sure it's going to come around the Monday after Thanksgiving when we're recording. I'm going to realize that there was a whole Comic-Con that I'm going to have to like keep track of that weekend, and I'm going to be annoyed. And like, that's obviously extremely minor compared to like what you're saying, like celebrities and people on panels having to sacrifice family time. I mean, you can draw some parallels, right? Assuming it's a one-time deal, which I certainly hope it will be. I mean, you look at football players, right? They play football games on Thanksgiving. There are certain teams that do that every single year. So there are people that make sacrifices.
I'm thinking that this was strategic. I think they want to say that they're doing it big, but then this allows them to say, yep, they're doing it, but it's going to limit how many people actually do it because of family commitments. And I think that's kind of smart, but why not just limit the head count?
Well, I think they also, so they were getting a lot of flack on the internet, on Twitter and social media for having it on Thanksgiving weekend. And I believe they actually the planning committee said, like, this was the only weekend we were able to get the convention center and all the permits and stuff that we needed. And this was the only time that it was free, which I find a little hard to believe. I'm not going to outright say they're lying, but like we just said, on the heels of the pandemic, like, I find that kind of hard to believe, but hey, who knows?
The other thing worth considering is, as I said before, limiting headcount makes it more safe. There's other things. If the convention center wasn't available, why does it have to be at the convention center? I mean, you have the Chargers, right? For example, they have a football stadium that has an open top. Could it be in the stadium?
I was about to say it would be like right before winter, but that's not really, not that winter's not a thing in California.
In LA.
Like, that's not really an issue.
They can have it outdoors, but also kind of enclosed so that they can, you know, have security and things like that very easily. I think they should listen to me.
The Chargers are in LA now. So
they're
they're no longer in San Diego. The convention center is in San Diego. I assume that's why it's called San Diego Comic-Con.
But there is a stadium somewhere they could employ.
Yeah, Qualcomm is probably still there. I don't know, but what are they, not tear it down? Probably not. Yeah, I mean, if you read this IGN article that I have in front of me, it's very clear that they. And to be honest, I think it's kind of nice that they're being very transparent about it. Their explanation is basically, we need money desperately. I'll read this again, a direct quote. In addition to highlighting all the great elements that make Comic-Con such a popular event each year, the company is also hopeful to generate much needed revenue, not only for the organization, but also for local businesses and the community. I think you can forget about the local businesses and the community part. I think they're saying this is an organization. Granted, I don't really know what Comic-Con as an organization does besides host these events, but it sounds like they are desperate. Purportedly, it's a non-profit organization, but David Glanzer, spokesperson for the organization, said, hopefully this event will shore up our financial reserves and mark a slow return to larger in-person gatherings in 2022. So to me, what that reads is, if we want to do it the regular way in 2022, we need to bring in some quiche. Let me tell you, there are many other ways to do that. I don't know. Maybe that's narrow-minded of me to say.
Well, I know they did the digital Comic-Con, and
that didn't work out.
I felt like it didn't really work out. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of viewership, but partly that was kind of on them because they didn't really make it an event. Like, I know when E3 rolls around, there's a schedule. I know exactly when to tune into stuff. There's nothing like overlapping. You know what I mean? And I feel like with the Comic-Con digital events, it was just like, oh, well, there's a ton of stuff happening at all times. It really depends on what stream you want to watch. And it was just so hard to keep track of everything. And like, I get that's how they do it in real life. Like, there's panels going on simultaneously all the time. But if you're going to have a virtual event, you can't really do that because you're just splitting your viewership at that point. And I feel like they didn't do a great job with that. And that's probably why they're scrambling now. But I mean,
when was the digital event last year? Do you remember? Because I don't remember offhand.
I remember I tried to keep track of it the first few hours, and then it just got too much because it wasn't organized very well. And then I just caught like recaps at the end.
What I'm wondering too is, was that in the relatively early stages of pandemic such that, look, as a culture, as a society, we've adapted to pandemic lifestyles in various ways, in the past year. I would think society and the potential viewership of a remote Comic-Con would be more prepared for the challenges, and, the Comic-Con organizers themselves would be more prepared to put on a more cohesive event and have more of a cohesive viewership. Because I agree with you, like thinking about what you just said and the comparison to E3, which I think is an apt one. If Comic-Con was done like E3 is, where they scheduled panels perhaps not as concurrently, I don't wonder if that would be a more successful way to do that. I know for a fact that if that was a thing, I would watch pretty diligently, perhaps even more so than E3, and I watch a lot of E3 content every year, and that generates revenue for them through, the usual video revenue sources that you have. So I wonder aloud why that doesn't happen. I think you've just touched on an important, I don't know, maybe debate is what you would call it. Why doesn't that happen?
And I'm not even mad that they're having an in-person event, because at some point, somebody has to be the first to do it. You know what I mean? We see PAX has gotten canceled. We've seen other, I'm trying to think of the other conventions, but there have been a slew of different conventions that have gotten canceled. I think E3, didn't they say that they were going digital again? And it's just I get it, someone has to be the first to do it, but just why make it on a holiday? And because we don't know. I mean, November is so far away. We have no idea what November is going to look like at this point. And worst case scenario, you pull the trigger at the end and you say, hey, we're going to postpone, whatever. But just to plan it on a holiday just seems so bad of an idea.
I think that not just with regards to conventions, but at large, there's going to be a lot of this game of chicken going on in terms of how and when things reopen. I think you're going to see movie studios competing, saying, okay, when, do we push back Bond again, or do we say, no, this is it for sure, and just kind of weather whatever PR storm or whatever financial storm we get as a result of that. I mean, you're seeing now, we're not going to talk about it this week, but Black Widow, they just announced it's going to be going on Disney Plus again. Mm-hmm. But it's also, I think this one might have a concurrent theater release. We're seeing Warner Brothers is saying next year they're not going to be doing the concurrent HBO Max theater releases. They're going to go fully back to theaters. So we're starting to see things dip back into quote unquote normal life. But I think you're going to see a lot of these things of, especially direct competitors in the entertainment industry are going to be thinking, okay, do we have to be, because of the timing of our big releases or whatever, do we have to be the first ones to urge people back out of their houses? And yeah, this is just a taste of that. But we'll see. I'm sure
on the plus side, everyone's going to be wearing masks. Get it? Because cosplay.
Well, I see what you've done there. Yeah, I see what you've done there. It's not going to help. And also, there's a lot of people that just face paint, or just if it were me, I would just show up. What percent of Comic-Con attendees are cosplayers? Would you estimate? Because I actually have no sense of this.
I feel like there's probably a stat out here. You guys guesstimate and discuss. I'm going to Google this.
I'm telling you, at least one of the days when I go, because this is not an if, this is a when.
It's a when.
I will be in cosplay. What it is, I don't know yet. But it can be something very simple. Cosplay can be easy. You can wear a button up and put a pillow under your shirt and say you're Peter Griffin. It can be very easy, or it can be super elaborate. It's all about just having a little fun.
I would guess. Yeah, okay.
So I looked it up.
No higher.
The Times of San Diego says it's 12.5% potentially.
I was going to guess no more than 20%. So I feel relatively validated. In any case, I'm sure SDCC has, like you said, I'm sure there are contingencies if they pull the trigger to postpone. I'm sure they still have the option to. It's not like this is going to happen no matter what. If an asteroid hits San Diego, God forbid, something like that. But it's going to be interesting to see, both as the entertainment industry comes out of its cave and as COVID potentially comes back out of its cave and starts wreaking havoc again, how this changes. And I have a feeling we may be revisiting this. But for now, we'll stick a pin in this and move on to more fun stuff, because I think the other two topics are a lot more fun. Let's talk about the Suicide Squad. So the Suicide Squad came out with a trailer late last week, I believe it was. Anyway, I think we had maybe a short trailer before, like a behind the scenes first look kind of thing, but this was their first big trailer for this movie. And I have some thoughts, but I'm going to turn it over to Techtic to start, because Techtic's our DC guy, and I genuinely want to hear what he has to say first.
So I'm excited about the random assortment of ragtag Suicide Squad characters that we're going to be introduced to. But the thing that I'm kind of most excited for that this trailer introduced us to that it didn't initially was the introduction of the villain. So I don't know if you guys caught this, but sort of at the end of the trailer, you saw a giant starfish.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They made some kind of like, didn't they make some kind of like kaiju joke or something?
Yeah. So that was the introduction of Starro the Conqueror, which is sort of a big Justice League bad guy and really huge planet conqueror villain. So it's going to have a big epic battle. There's going to be some exciting fighting scenes, and it's going to be comical because it's a giant starfish.
Right. To tack onto your last point, I think the best thing this trailer did, I'll admit, I'm a little confused about the evolution from Suicide Squad to the Suicide Squad. It looks like Viola Davis is still in it and she's still helming everything. There's Harley Quinn has crossed over between the last one and this one. I guess I didn't watch the original Suicide Squad. Just tell me, did all the other characters die or something? Is that how it ends?
No, there are a few that also crossed over. I'm trying to think. I don't remember the actor's name.
Joel Kinnaman, one of the guys, also crossed over.
Yeah,
one of the white guys. I can't think of who it is, but I know who you're talking about. But my concern, I think the sense of humor is great. I have no issue with that. I think it looks like it's going to be very funny. I think John Cena is one of the funniest, most undervalued comedic actors around.
Well, his character in itself is hilarious. It's the American patriot that is just blind patriotism, which ultimately ends up being a harmful thing.
Right.
Basically making fun of Captain America.
I think that's going to be super funny. I think the interplay between him and Idris Elba is going to be amazing. My concern is the same concern that I've leveled at DC time and time again. And it seems, my fear is they're going to keep making the same darn mistakes. They're going to introduce too many characters at once, and you're not going to end up knowing any of them. That is my,
I think you can get away with that because these are meant to be killed off characters, in my opinion. And don't be surprised.
Some of them are going to die.
Oh yeah, these are designed to be killed off characters. Whereas the Justice League, those are people that are being established to be around for the long haul, so to speak. So there you have to establish a backstory. This you can say, "Hi, I'm Steve," and then kill off Steve.
Right. They would have to commit to that. I mean,
that's my go-to name. I don't know why.
I mean, if you look at Guardians of the Galaxy, it is possible to introduce a bunch of characters in one movie and to have them be cohesive and make it feel like you know all of them and have them be this funny comedic kind of ragtag troupe of people. And not coincidentally, James Gunn directed Guardians of the Galaxy and he's directing this movie. So if anyone can do it, it's probably him.
Well, I think it helps too. You also, like you said, we have a few carryover characters and they're going to be part of the core team. I think ultimately you're going to have a core team of 5 or 6, some of which are carried over. And the rest are just kind of like background tertiary characters that come in for a few one-liners here or there. You know, like I feel like Pete Davidson, we're going to see him for like maybe a couple scenes and he's going to get killed off in spectacular fashion, make a couple one-liners and then be done. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the background cast will be there for comedic relief and we're going to be following a key core of characters. That said, I am very happy and some people might disagree with me, but one of the things that this trailer showed off was Margot Robbie again as Harley Quinn. And, you know, after watching the original Suicide Squad, I was just kind of like, I think she was one of the better parts of the original Suicide Squad movie. And then watching Birds of Prey, like, I think she really does a good job with that character. I think she really embodies the character, makes it a very funny character, takes a lot of the personality traits from the comics and the video games. Not so much dark, but just like funny. And I like that.
And with this, you can guarantee another Halloween filled with Harley Quinns.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to get there with this. So I do have one more question that hopefully Techtic can answer. What the heck is the deal with Polka Dot Man? Can you walk me through that at all? What's his power?
Basically manifesting matter.
Why is he Polka Dot Man?
His suit.
But if you can manifest matter, your persona is Polka Dot Man?
Well, they're always disc-shaped matter.
I see. Interesting. They didn't show it much in the trailer. I just know that he's one of them, and I want to understand. That's the guy who was from Dark Knight, right? The kooky guy from Dark Knight? That's Polka Dot Man, right? Or is that a different hero? Well, I'm not saying Polka Dot Man was in Dark Knight. I'm saying the actor. I think the actor who plays Polka Dot Man is one of the crazy guys who helps the Joker from Dark Knight. Anyways, I really would like for this to work. I'm going in with what I think is a healthy amount of skepticism because DC can't figure it out.
Did you watch Birds of Prey?
I did not.
Birds of Prey was pretty good. And so is Shazam. And I think Zack Snyder's Justice League, we talked about it last week, was surprisingly better than I expected it. Super long, but still better. But I think they're doing themselves a great service by pivoting away from his vision and kind of starting fresh because, yeah, there's a place for your dark superhero movies. And I know that's what they were going for. But I think time and place, and I think now people just want humor. People... like they're going in direct competition with Marvel, whether they like it or not. So by going with this lighter, funnier tone, that's what people expect out of a superhero movie today.
Yeah, it is a
right,
good
wrong,
tonal
or
shift.
indifferent. So I think this tonal shift into a funnier realm, which you've seen carried out now in Shazam, Birds of Prey, and now the new Suicide Squad movie, I think it's going to be pretty good because I liked both of those. I thought they were good.
So I agree with you. I think the tonal shift is a good move. My counterpoint, and frankly one that's just, I think, maybe causing the bulk of my mental block, is the last DC movie I saw, if I remember correctly. No, Wonder Woman 1984 I saw, and that also wasn't good. The last DC movie I saw before that was Aquaman, and everyone loved Aquaman except for me. I did not like Aquaman at all, and Aquaman, I think to its credit, did try to do that same tonal shift of like, we're going to be lighthearted. Arthur Curry is this kind of like, he talks like this, but he's really funny, and it didn't work for me.
But I feel like there's dissonance there too, because I think in the writer's room, there was probably, I know the original Justice League movie, he was more comedic, Aquaman, but in the original way he was pictured and imagined when he was introduced in Zack Snyder's Justice League, he was not funny at all. Like, I don't think he had many comedic lines in Zack Snyder's Justice League, period. So I wonder if that wasn't just some like writer's room disconnect for you.
Potentially. I don't know. Again, it's just a bunch of mental blocks for me. I don't love what they've done with Aquaman in general, because like Aquaman in the comics is like the most straight-laced person on Earth, and they were like, no, forget about that. And that bothers me a little bit. But anyways.
I'm telling you, go watch Shazam, go watch Birds of Prey, and then you'll feel a little bit better about this movie.
I already feel decent about it. I'm saying I'm not going to run to the theater. I'm going to wait and see.
You don't have to, because it'll be on HBO Max for free.
True enough. That is a pretty sizable boon in terms of me watching this movie. This movie comes out later this year, August 6th. So that's soon. Doesn't feel like soon, but it is soon. Go watch the trailer if you haven't already. Let us know what you think of all these new characters, what you think of the general vibe this trailer is putting out. At OW86, at OW Techtic, at OW Nerdbomber, and our main show account at Online Warriors 1. Happy to chat with you about this and all other things. We're going to head to an ad break now, but before we do, we would love to shout out our Patreon producers, Mr. Ben Checkness, Mr. Stephen Keller. Thank you guys again for continuing to support the show at the highest levels of Patreon support, the night level. As a result of supporting us at the night level, Ben and Steven get access to our monthly secret segment and vlog, of course, but also they get this producer shout out, and they get input into our weekly game segment, which this week is going to be about Andrew Lloyd Webber, and I am hosting that. Look forward to that later. Thanks again to Steven and Ben, and also thank you to anyone else who supports us on Patreon at the Squire level, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment and vlog, or the Page level, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment. If you want details on how to give back to the show, how to support us, keep doing what we're doing, you can head over to patreon.com/Online Warriors Podcast for more of the details. Thanks again to Stephen and Ben, and we're going to take a short break now to shout out one of our sponsors. Today's episode is presented by The Skin Store. For over 20 years, The Skin Store has been the #1 destination for premium skincare, hair care, and beauty products. With over 8,000 different products from 300 different brands, The Skin Store has you covered for all your hair, cosmetics, supplements, and of course, skincare needs. Find your favorite brands like Elta MD, NuFace, Olaplex, and more, all in one place with gifts with every purchase. Right now, The Skin Store is offering our listeners 20% off your next purchase by using the code POD, that's code POD, for 20% off your next purchase at skinstore.com/pod.list. Skin Store. Have the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Exclusions apply. Okay, we're going to keep the train rolling here with some additional movie news. And this one I'm particularly excited about. I'm sure we have talked about this on the show before, but the long-awaited and long-discussed and rumored Obi Wan Kenobi television show coming soon to Disney Plus. Soon I use as a loose term because this has just been announced it's going to start shooting next month. That's the month of April in 2021. And not only have they announced that in terms of timeline, but they've also given us a cast list. And of course, the two headlines that you were expecting to see, of course, Ewan McGregor will be returning, and Hayden Christensen, who I have a particular affinity for, and I think a lot of prequel fans have a particular affinity for, will be returning, of course, as Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. But we also have some other faces here, and we can go through a number of them. I have a feeling we're going to talk about Kumail Nanjiani, and we should. But I want to zone in for a second on O'Shea Jackson Jr. because I am a huge fan of his. And he was in a movie that I don't know if you guys saw. Unfortunately, I should have thought of the name of it before I started talking about this. This is the movie with Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron where she's a politician and he's like...
Oh, and he loves her.
And he loves her and he's a reporter. Gosh, what is the... I'm going to have to look it up right now, but long story short, O'Shea Jackson is in that movie and... He is very, very funny in that movie. Long Shot is what the name of the movie is. Yeah. He's super funny in that. He kind of immediately endeared me to him. And not that they're the same person, but Ice Cube, who, of course, I think is O'Shea Jackson's dad or uncle or something. Also an extremely funny actor. Undervalued much in the same way that I mentioned John Cena being earlier. So I would assume they're going to use O'Shea Jackson Jr. in some kind of comedic role. And I'm very on board with that. But there's other familiar faces here. Some unfamiliar, but other familiar faces. Techtic, I want your read on the potential usage of Kumail Nanjiani, who, by the way, I'm also a big fan of.
So I didn't get super excited about the potential usage of Kumail Nanjiani that much. The thing that I really focused on was Hayden Christensen. And I think that's the biggest deal of all of the cast, in my opinion. And the reason why is because... in the Star Wars films, we didn't get a lot of time to focus in on what it would have been like to see Anakin training his own person. And we've already seen Ahsoka Tano in The Mandalorian, and this will give us an opportunity to be introduced to her much, much younger under his guise. And I've said this before, her backstory is incredibly challenged and rich and really amazing in my opinion. And to see that in the live action role, there's a lot of opportunity there for really good content.
For sure. I mean, Hayden Christensen, what I hope for him, as I kind of alluded to before, he's a meme in like Star Wars fan culture. I think a lot of people just treat him like a meme. I think he can do it. Has he done anything else acting wise, like since Star Wars ended? I don't think so.
He did a few things.
He did Jumper.
Jumper was what I was thinking of.
I want him to excel because as funny as it is, watching some of his performances in the prequel trilogy, I think the reason that they're often funny is that they were really close to being really good, if that makes sense. Darth Vader, at his turning point, is an extremely difficult role to play. He had a very tough job, and you cannot watch what he did and say that he didn't give it his all. What his all turned out to be, some people didn't like, and some people thought was funny. And the writing also did him no favors, by the way. But I think he poured himself into it, and I'm looking forward to seeing him do that again, like you said, Techtic, in a role of training someone. I assume, what we're going to see, we should, of course, see some lightsaber battles between Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, or maybe not. I mean, it's murky, right? Because I think in episode 4, he basically said, Obi-Wan Kenobi basically says, that was the last time I saw him, or it's implied that was the last time he saw him when they fought each other. Maybe they don't cross paths again. Maybe they never share scenes. I doubt that, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do here.
One of the cast members that I was actually really excited about, and I don't know if you guys were big Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift fans, but that's like one of my guilty pleasure movies. Like, I know it was the outlier and considered to be bad in comparison to the other Fast and Furious movies, but I really liked it. And Sung Kang is listed as one of the cast members of Obi-Wan, and I think that could be really good. He's a really good like action actor. I feel like
is this Han? Is this the one that everyone's mad that he died and he didn't actually die? Or am I
it's
mixing
Han.
characters? Okay, yeah.
For a second, my mind went to Han Solo because we were talking about Star Wars, and then I had to pivot to Fast and Furious, and I was like, Han.
It is Han, right? Did I get it right?
No, you're right.
I haven't seen Tokyo Drift. I've only seen like 2 Fast and Furious movies.
It's like so good, but it's so bad. So Tokyo Drift like kind of doesn't tie into the other ones at all, which I think is why I liked
drift,
it.
Bro.
Yeah,
people have been wondering who killed Han for like a billion years, and it turns out I think they were in the trailer for the next one. I think they revealed that he's not actually dead. Right? That was like a big.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I have never seen them, but I trust you. I think I would like for this to be very actiony, and I think also getting guys like Joel Edgerton. That lends more to that theory that it could be kind of actiony. Maybe this is wrong, but Joel Edgerton strikes me as a villainous. That's a villain character. That's my read. I don't know. I mean, admittedly, I haven't seen many Joel Edgerton movies, but
not Rupert. Oh, Rupert is so villainous in my opinion.
Rupert does look pretty villainous.
He was in Pride and Prejudice, by the way.
You can kind of take this grid of photos they released and try to like meta it out, right? Like, is it split down the middle of like the people on the left are good guys, people on the right are bad guys, but then Hayden Christensen's on the left with Obi Wan. It's interesting. Now, I do want to circle back to Kumail, because Kumail played an alien in Men in Black, whatever the last Men in Black was. Can't even think of what it was called. Men in Black International, which I did not see and I guess wasn't good, but that's what I see him doing here. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I see him, again, I don't want to draw comparisons that are memey, but that's a Jar Jar situation if ever I saw one. I think he's going to be playing a Jar Jar character. I think they might be setting out to like, let's do Jar Jar better. And like, again, try to undo the meme. I would love it if this show was just like, let's undo all the Star Wars memes.
See, I don't know though, because I can also see him being a more serious character and trying to pivot away from comedy a little bit, because I mean, obviously Disney is working with him. He's in Marvel's The Eternals, and the movie's not out yet, but from some of the interviews, it seems like it's going to be a little bit more of a serious role than his normal. Well, yeah. He's got that little smirk.
Yeah, he's fixing to tell a joke in this photo. And look, and then like by comparison, like look at Ewan McGregor's like, okay, I'm gonna smile as little as possible. Hayden Christensen's like, what are you gonna take a picture of me? Like the only person who's outright smiling in any of these photos is O'Shea Jackson Jr. And I think he's gonna be funny. And then like Kumail's given like that smirky kind of. Again, maybe I'm digging.
It is really interesting because I feel like with stuff like this, every time there's a Star Wars or Marvel release, there's so much you can read into, and whether or not there are actually clues there is yet to be seen. But there's so many ways you can dissect this photo grid and pretty much any announcement that Disney makes in any of their franchises.
I would think they would be thinking about that at this point, right? I mean, they're Disney, they're Star Wars. Like, I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'm digging too deep here.
It is exciting that it is going to be shooting next month, though. Which means that we should be seeing this somewhat soon.
I love, too, the diversity of this cast. I think, and they've taken really strong steps with that, of course, with the new trilogy and even The Mandalorian. I think Star Wars needs more, and it has a lot of strong female characters, but there can't be enough. And I'm really happy about that. Really excited to see where this goes. And yeah, next month's shooting. Hopefully, like when I think of this, you know what I want from this show? The speeder chase scene from episode 2. I want that to be the entire show. Just that's it. And granted,
which is why you have someone from Fast and the Furious. He's going to be drifting.
Okay, you know what? I would actually love it if like I want a character who's like a pod racer. Bring pod racing back. This show could be so many great things, and it's not going to be any of them, and I'm already mad about it. But like, imagine if there was a character who was like really good with speeders, and not like an ace pilot, because ace pilots have been done by Star Wars 100 times. I want someone who, when they're on a planet, can hop into a speeder or a pod racer and do crazy things. I think that's a great character model.
Basically, you want a Han Solo of pod racers.
A little bit, yeah. And I think also, considering, there's so many questions here. Like, if Obi Wan immediately hides out on Tatooine, which I guess we know he doesn't do that from like the Clone Wars and well, no, Clone Wars is in between 2 and 3, but I don't know if he immediately hides out on Tatooine, but if he does, drastically raises the chances that there's going to be pod racing again. And super hyped about that. I don't know. we'll see, I guess. But we want to know what your thoughts are on this too. We've already dropped our handles in the episode, but the Obi Wan Kenobi cast. What are your thoughts? Who are you excited about? Who did we not mention? Because there's, I think, like 7 names here that we didn't even mention. Frankly, because I don't know, I'm not as familiar with their work. I think Benny Safdie is one of the guys who directed Uncut Gems, and he's just here, which, like, interesting. So let us know what you think of the cast. Let us know what you think the show's going to be. Let us know what you want it to be. And let's have a conversation. Right now, we're going to head to What Are You Up To Town? And I'm going to start with Nerdbomber this week. Ladies first, what have you been up to?
All right, so 2 things that I want to touch on. The first is that we watched Raya and the Last Dragon. And I know you're going to be questioning this, Illeagle, because we do share a Disney Plus account, but we shared this with my sister. And it was really good.
Oh, is that a premium?
Yeah, it was another one of those things
so
when it was like $39 on top of your Disney Plus subscription, which I know in theory works out monetarily once you have like multiple people watching the movie, but whatever.
Is it Pixar? Or, sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions.
It's not Pixar, it's Disney.
Okay.
And essentially the plot is that once upon a time, there was a unified land, and then a big evil thing starts turning people to stone, and dragons sacrifice themselves to banish the evil thing and save the human race. But then they leave behind one dragon gem that is like the last remnant of their power. And then in typical human fashion, humans are greedy and they end up splitting into different factions who kind of like not necessarily war with each other, but are just split into different factions and not living in unity. And something happens to the gem and the bad things come back. And Raya was raised to be one of the guardians of this dragon gem, and so she goes on a quest to find the rumored last dragon and try to restore balance to the world, get rid of the bad things that are turning people to stone again, and save the world. And I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I really liked the fact, and maybe this is like a weird woman comment, but I really like the fact there was not a romance in this movie. It was literally just a journey of like self-discovery, finding people who are different and coming together to learn about teamwork and unity and just having like crazy magical humor and stuff like that. And a small cameo by Betty White that made me chuckle. But like there was no romance. It was kind of in the vein of Frozen, where that wasn't a focus of this movie, and it was better for it. Like it had Mulan feels almost, this movie. And I know they were both like Asian backgrounds, but it really felt more about, you know, this female character being a badass and saving the world. And I really liked it. And it was funny. I thought the animation was incredible. I really liked the animation style. I really liked the general overline story and the theme of the movie. I don't think it hit me as hard as like something like Soul from like an emotional standpoint. This one didn't like resonate. But in terms of like just a fun movie to watch, I thought it was pretty enjoyable.
Duly noted. I mean, I'm not sure I'm going to be paying $39 for it, but
I think it goes free for everybody who is a Disney Plus subscriber in like June or July, I want to say.
Great movie watching time.
Techtic, did you, before I move on to my other thing, did you have any comments on the movie?
My one comment on the movie is every dragon has a special power. And when you figure out what the dragon's power is, you're going to be sorely disappointed.
It is kind of a lame power.
Wow. You're really hyping it for me. Okay, go on, Nerdbomber.
And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on is that we started playing Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity. And this is something we were playing co-op. And because we finished, you know, Sackboy: A Big Adventure, we did pre-order It Takes Two, but it hadn't gotten here yet. So we started playing Hyrule Warriors. And I will say, this is my second foray into the world of Zelda. I think this one's a little bit more palatable to me than Breath of the Wild, just because Breath of the Wild was very open worldy and I felt like I was a little aimless. Like it doesn't really give you missions, or at least the 2 hours that I played. I do have to like revisit it and give it a good solid chance. But the couple hours that I played of Breath of the Wild, I felt like I was kind of aimless and my weapons kept breaking and I got frustrated, so I stopped. This was obviously a very different style game. It's not like a mainline Zelda game. It's kind of like a prequel to Breath of the Wild. And I will say it's pretty fun. It's pretty button mashy, lots of action, but that's the kind of stuff I like. My only qualm was that I was kind of disappointed, and I don't know if this only happens when you're playing split screen co-op like we did, but there were a lot of really egregious frame rate drops that really bogged down the play, where everything would just kind of like stutter stop, and like it didn't make you die or anything like that. It wasn't that bad, but it was just kind of annoying, especially when you consider that this is literally a first party Switch exclusive title. So you would think that they would hammer that technical aspect out a little bit better.
And in button mashy games, that can, in my experience, kind of ruin your flow, can it not?
Yeah, it didn't completely ruin the gameplay at all.
It doesn't
it's
kill
just
you, like you said.
It's like a jarring moment though, because like you're feeling it, and then all of a sudden it's just like stutter, and you're like, oh.
Right.
And like some of the characters are definitely better than others. I will say I am a big fan of Link in this game. I know Techtic has his own favorites that he likes to play. But yeah, so that's kind of what we've been playing lately. Just good old fashioned co-op.
Plus, you have to be
love couch co-op.
Yeah, that's true. In a lot of missions, the first player has to be Link, so I don't really have a choice, but it's fine. I'm good with it.
You sound like you're still working on being good with it, but I'll give you time to do that. Techtic, over to you. What's
So my
the deal,
biggest
man?
thing is I started reading a book called Altered Carbon. Super
It's a
interesting.
Netflix show.
I know, but I don't want to watch it. I don't like to watch things until after I read it.
Fair enough.
There's something to be said to that, in my opinion.
Agreed.
It's a super interesting premise, and basically your bodies don't really mean anything anymore. If you could pay for it, you continuously have your conscious updated so that if someone knocks you off or even if you kill yourself, they'll just upload you into a new, so to speak, skin. So it's a neat premise. Everyone, the rich are basically immortal, as well as the, I guess, non-religious are basically immortal because they've touched on that. I'm fairly early into the book, but super interesting. We've talked about uploading consciousness before.
I was going to say, that's one of your things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the key to space travel, in my opinion. But yeah, so I'm really excited to delve more into it. If anyone else has read it and has any reason to tell me to stop right now, please do.
Jeez. Okay. Someone warn him if you need to, I guess. Yeah. That was an interesting way to stick a pin in that review. I'll be circling back to you to hear more about that in future episodes. I am also going to shout out a couple of books. So I finished Later, which is the Stephen King book that I read. I've mentioned having started a week ago or 2 weeks ago. That was a quick read for me. It's one of his shorter books. I was a big fan of it. It was a little bit on the generic side, simply in that it's very similar to like The Sixth Sense. Someone can converse with dead people is kind of the main thrust of the premise, but it had some really interesting twists at the end. I think you could tell that he was having a lot of fun with it, a lot of fun with the format, which again was these kind of smaller pulpy crime books. So that was really cool. I've read A Drink Before the War, which was Dennis Lehane's first book. If you don't know who Dennis Lehane is, he did Shutter Island. And there's a Mystic River. He's done a bunch of books that have been made into movies. I did not like that. I don't think the detective genre is necessarily for me because it was like this hard Boston detective who's like not a very good person. And it made him hard to root for as a character, and he was the main character. So I don't want to dwell on that. Right now, what I'm reading actually is a book that Techtic and Nerdbomber might remember. I think maybe just Nerdbomber. Nerdbomber, we read an excerpt from this book in college, The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. Are you familiar?
Oh,
you
yeah.
This? I like Malcolm Gladwell a lot. I was in the mood for nonfiction, so I picked it up and started it. I had it on my shelf, and I think I bought it at like a used book sale a long time ago and just never got around to reading it. So far, it's fascinating, but I'm not very far in, so I'll report back on that next week. The only other update I have, and again, I'll keep this short because we'll have to talk about this in full next week or another week. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, are you guys watching?
No, actually, we watched another show that I do want to touch on that I totally forgot, but go ahead.
With Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's too early to tell. I think the first episode was crap. The second episode was better. And
that bad?
We'll see if the first episode was pretty bad. I thought the first episode was pretty bad. The second one was definitely better, and I'm just waiting. We're kind of waiting now to see if that trajectory continues upwards. Because the first episode, not like we're not going to keep watching territory, but we were like, man, this better get better. And luckily it did in episode 2.
So there's only 6 episodes. It's like a mini series here, and there's only 6 episodes, right?
I actually didn't know how many there were. It sounds right. Jeez, it better get better fast. I think it is. It's heading in the right direction. It was kind of plagued by expositional issues, I think, in the first episode. There was very little action and a lot of subplots that I did not care about being started off that I assume are going to merge in a more satisfying way, but we'll see.
I did see a screenshot of Upified Captain America that I'm really curious because it was like no context screenshot, and now I really kind of want to see where that comes in.
The new
I have
Captain
a feeling
America,
where that's going.
The new Captain America thing is pretty wild, I will say. We'll talk about it some other time because a lot of people probably haven't watched much of it yet, and you guys haven't watched much of it yet. I don't want to drop anything spoilery, so I'll stick a pin in it for now. You can shout out your show before we move on to the quiz. But yeah, that's all I'll say about it for now.
We did watch Invincible, which is the new Robert Kirkman show. It's an animated show, so Illeagle, you may not like this. But it's on Amazon Prime, and the first 3 episodes just dropped this Friday. And essentially the premise is that the main character, who is in high school, his father is essentially the equivalent of Superman, so like an alien who comes down to Earth. And
oh, right.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I've seen
You need
ads
to check
for
it out.
This is
I don't
Stephen
wanna-
Yeun and J. Jonah Jameson. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very good. Like, I don't want to really say too much about it because I feel like there's spoilers abound even within the first 3 episodes. And like, you kind of want to go in, if you haven't read the comic, not knowing anything because there's like twisty turnies all over the place and it's super good.
Basically, y'all know me. You know I love gory cartoon superhero stuff. That's why I'm always telling you guys to watch the animated Batman movies. If you like those, check this out. It's right up your alley. You won't be disappointed.
Yeah, I'm not typically an animated guy, as you clearly know, but I thought about that.
Yeah, no, I know
will
you're
say.
not cultured.
I mean, J.K. Simmons is in it.
Yeah, I said J. Jonah Jameson. I meant J.K. Simmons, but people probably knew what I meant. Even he looks exactly like J. Jonah Jameson
Oh, yeah.
in the show.
Well, I mean, his silky voice alone, I feel like you should just watch it for that.
I wouldn't call it silky. I mean,
Give it 2 episodes. And then if you don't watch it beyond that, that's fine. But give it 2 episodes.
imagine J. Jonah Jameson saying, "Get me more pictures of Spider-Man," and calling that silky. I'm still back on that.
Well, it's
great.
like a deep, kind of smooth voice.
Let's agree to disagree on that. And let's move on to the quiz because I'm hosting this week. I'm very excited about it. My first hosting in a while because I had been on a bit of a losing streak. But we have a topic here that, look, when I was in high school, I was in musicals. I wasn't in any Andrew Lloyd Webbers, but I was in musicals. So our topic this week from Patreon, Andrew Lloyd Webber. And this guy was a big deal. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions here with 1 bonus. Most of them are basically about how awesome he is. And they're all Price is Right style, so strap in. Nerdbomber, you will go first because ladies first. I just arbitrarily decided that. We're going to start off pretty perfunctory here. How old is Andrew Lloyd Webber? Look, you know who he is. You know he's done things. You have no idea how old he is.
I feel like he's got to be pretty old. I'm going to say he's like 75.
Big bust. I know it's older than this, but I'm just going to say safe and go 50.
Tiny bust. He turned 73 on March 22nd.
That's a big
Darn it.
bust.
I was
To
so
me,
close.
That's not a big bust. So Techtic's on the board. We're going to get into his career, but I also want to mention, because I thought this was cool, when people get knighted, that's cool to me. Andrew Lloyd Webber was knighted. When? What year? Think about the trajectory of his career. Think about how old he is. When was this dude knighted? When did the queen do the scepter thing on his shoulders? Techtic, you're up first this time. Just looking for a year here, not an
1997.
I'm going to say younger than that. I'm going to say 1970.
Okay, Techtic, you busted.
Was it a little bust?
It was a little bust. 1992 is when he was knighted. So that means we're knotted up 1-1 here. 4 questions to go plus a tiebreaker. Now we'll get into his career. How many musicals has Andrew Lloyd Webber composed the music for?
I feel like this is a fair amount. I'm going to say 15. I can only think of like a few that are
it's way
big
more
off
than
the top of my head, but like I feel like it's 15.
It's way more than that. 16.
Oh, you butt.
Techtic, you are a butt. It was more. It was not way more. 21. And that's still too many to list them out, so I'm not going to. You know the big ones. We'll get to one of his big ones later. 21. So Techtic, by the butt strategy, inches ahead. Given that he has composed 21 musicals, many of them quite successful, in 2019, he was estimated to be the wealthiest Brit, just flat out. I think probably like British citizen. It probably doesn't include like royalty, but with that in mind, what is his net worth as of 2019, as of an estimate in that year? And I'm looking for an answer in pounds, so you have to do
Oh, shoot.
dollars to pounds conversion if you want to, if you care that deeply.
5 million pounds.
Okay, 6 million pounds. I know it's way more than that.
This is the wealthiest Brit, Techtic. Did you hear when I said the wealthy? 820 million pounds.
Yeah, but I don't know the conversion.
Okay, well, it's 820 million pounds. I think it's like a pound is close to $1, I think.
Yeah, it's close enough.
Yeah. It's not like more than, it's not like 2. I think it's like 1.
I'm not as global as you might think I am.
Evidently. Okay, so Andrew Lloyd Webber is one of few people to have what is known as an EGOT, which is an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. How many people, including him, have accomplished this?
I'm going to say, I feel like it's going to be a small exclusive club of maybe like 5 people.
I think it's more than that.
I swear.
So I'm going to go 6.
Oh,
Okay.
we're in a fight.
Once again, Techtic succeeds with the butt strategies. 16, actually, which is more than
We
I would
are
have
in a
expected as well.
fight.
Nothing's new there.
Are you guys tied, or is Techtic ahead
No,
by
I'm
1?
up by 1.
He's up by 1 going into the last standard question here. This is about, we're going to get
Why
specific
would you do an
now,
even number of questions?
because I have a tiebreaker. Can you relax? Okay. This is actually the longest running musical on Broadway is The Phantom of the Opera, which made its debut on January 26, 1988 at the Majestic Theater
Love
and
it.
became the first musical ever to celebrate its 10,000th performance on February 11th, 2012. So the question is, how much has this grossed to date? And this is in dollars, so no conversions necessary. I will tell you, this is the 3rd highest grossing Broadway musical of all time. I don't know why that would help you, but I'm looking for a total gross for Phantom of the Opera.
I'm going to go $600 million.
$601 million.
She's done it, ladies and gents. $1.2 billion is the answer. Specifically, $1.238 billion. So we've established a tie, have we not?
We have.
So we have.
Which is great because
But you know what? He's just going to one-up me then in the next one.
So, or you could bust.
here's what we're going to do because you guys are being children at this point. My bonus question is, how many Emmys and Grammys combined has Andrew Lloyd Webber won? You are going to text me your answers.
Oh
And
boy, I like this.
That way, there's no funny business. So each of you individually will text me your answers. This is for all the marbles, all the cash in the cash box. And also, if both of you bust, I have a bonus.
A backup bust?
Okay, you're not going to believe this. So you both have submitted answers. Nerdbomber says 6. Techtic says 7.
Oh, come on.
Did you look at her phone? Techtic takes it. I'm sad to say. 4 Grammys and 6 Tonys, so 10 total. Techtic, by way of just being a total jerk, wins this one.
No, because that one was totally blind. That one was not a jerk, and she was equally a jerk.
I feel like he is in my head, and so he knew what I was texting you, and just like...
I honestly thought you put the same number as me.
That would have been interesting too if you guys had like exactly tied. But again, I had a contingency for that as well. I was going to ask you the individual, how many Grammys, how many Tonys. In any case, congratulations to Techtic pulling out the win there. It brings him to 3-3 on the year. I am at 4-2. Nerdbomber at 4-1. Queen of the Castle. No, sorry, 4-2 now. So Nerdbomber and I are tied for Queen of the Castle. Techtic right in there. I mean, this is very close. Heading into April, essentially, we're basically neck and neck. So stay tuned to see who becomes the 2021 quiz champion. And stay tuned for more great nerd content. We had some great news today. We had, of course, our interview earlier with Lukas Eggen. We thank him again. And we thank you all for showing up and listening with us. Tell your friends, tell your wife, tell your husband, tell your grandma, and tell them to also leave a review on Apple Podcasts. But also, I mean, primarily tell them to listen, but the Apple Podcast thing is secondary. But thank you all so much. This is Illeagle 86 for Techtic and Nerdbomber, telling you to have a great week.